patience.
Here, look.
Just not expecting it at all.
Yeah,
that's a massive hit for Emmanuel Collard.
There was no way in the world that wasn't going to happen.
Well, I mean, the Corvette driver, Emmanuel Collard, is looking at the line going through that corner. I mean, that is a very tricky part of the racetrack to be driving by yourself. You can't be looking in your mirrors going through there. It's a blind section, you know, it twists and tails through there so quickly. He would not have known that Anthony was coming up on him right there. Had no idea he was going to plow down the inside.
You could read the lips of Gary Pratt. They're saying, can he drive it? Can he drive it?
Well, the bad news looking at that hit is I don't think he'll get it back to pit lane, because what I did see when it was sitting off to the line there was all of the fluid from the rear gear bag pouring out onto the racetrack. You can't see it right now, but you know, I think that the rear end of that car is taking a substantial, and I'm talking about the transaxle. The gears are all at the back of that car. The transaxle.
The other cars, and particularly that is a class leader. They've done a brilliant job all day.
He's got it going. Now let's watch as it gets around the racetrack. If the feed comes back to it, I think he's going to be spreading oil. What a hit. That's very, very fast in there.
Oh, that's scary.
The second place Porsche is on the same lap as these cars, currently driven by Mark Lieb, the 77 Felbermeyer Porsche.
Yeah, look at the fluid. Look at the fluid coming out of the back.
Take it easy.
Yeah, really.
Take it easy. Deck here, I'm sure the 63 crew are still around there. Danny Binks and the boys will probably jump in here, but sometimes too many cooks will spoil the broth. I'm sure they'll get it immediately into the garage area so they can have more than the 4 working mechanics on the car at the same time.
This is the man who is in his 16th 24 hours of Le Mans start.
And of course they do the routine pit stop. They'll fuel first. Until they're done with the fuel, they can't do anything. Then they'll put it up on the dolly and start tearing that baby apart. There is an oil cooler right at the back there. I think that's her.
Jamie, you're on the spot. Tell us more.
Well, they did just finish fueling the car. They have it on the skates, as we call them right now. They're going to swing it around and take it into the garage, as you mentioned, just so they can get more hands on the car. From what I can see, there are a lot of people down here, as I'm sure you can imagine. It looks to be a lot of cosmetic damage. Crew has cleaned out the garage area. It's where they were all sitting and watching this race unfold for them. They're now in the garage. We talked about it earlier. The team is fully prepared before the race starts. They have bags of all of the things that they're going to need for particular parts of the car. As soon as that hit occurred, they pulled out the bag for the rear end. They had all the tools, a new rear end kit ready, and the team is getting to work right now. Andrew?
Yes, there's a little bit. I don't think that damage.
Crew is still working to get the bodywork off of the car. We can see them all pulling on it. It was a very hard hit. A lot of pieces squished together right now. I'll let you know as soon as we know more.
I don't think that damage on the Peugeot boys was from this incident.
No, that was from the earlier
hit.
Yeah, that's from before. These guys never touched. It wasn't bad at all. It was the fact that
Big guy to the right there is Mike Wist. He's the crew chief on the 64 car. And there, Danny Binks, we can see up to the right side, calling for parts and pieces.
talking about an oil tank. Maybe that oil sump tank is back there. That's where all that fluid came from.
Even though the facilities are great here at Le Mans, you're pretty restricted in these garage boxes with all the equipment in there. You don't have a ton of room.
That radiator at the back there on the old GT1 C6 was for the air conditioning system.
Yeah, that's the AC condenser back there.
It's the air conditioner condenser. Look at the frame right there. Smashed really badly on the right side.
We just
when you're just bolting on components is one thing. When they're smashed to pieces like that, it just takes so much longer in terms of getting the fasteners and the bolts out and then obviously reconnecting.
The noise you heard was an air chisel that they will use to shear the heads off of bolts that have been twisted too badly to get wrenches on.
And if there is some point of consolation here for Corvette Racing, the safety cars have been deployed. It's going to buy them a little time.
Look at these boys move.
Oh, it's first class, isn't it? It is first class work in action.
Good news is that the safety car is out there, so they are losing probably 1 lap to what would have been every 3 laps if we were still under green flag conditions.
This is on an Arnage, not where that wreck happened, but they're cleaning up their messes while these guys clean up their own. Our good friend Jim Durbin there. There's a hole in the oil tank they're talking about. You can see that. That's where the fluid came from. Got to wonder if, even though it was close, Calvin, to the pit in, that oil tank that holds all of the lifeblood of the engine. These are dry sumped engines. They don't have oil in the oil pan like a traditional street car. The oil's in that tank and it's pumped via a pump through there. With the big hole and all the fluid I saw coming out, how long did it run with no oil pressure? That's another question.
Right.
As it came by me.
Hold that on the way so I can take the oil tank off, please.
That's the oil cooler, that piece.
This is what caused this incident. Anthony Davidson just muscling his way through on Emmanuel Collard.
Big hit. You saw the Armco barrier flex there big time. That's a very high-speed part of the racetrack.
And Brian looks at that and knows right away his work's about to begin. By being forced out wide, there's just no grip out there, Calvin.
No, Collard's probably run about 140. I think the prototype's about 160 at that part of the racetrack. Just really, really high speed. And, you know, you can't react in a GT car. I mean, you know, the prototypes have so much downforce. They can run around the outside of cars. They can dive down the inside and get away with it. With a GT machine.
Good camera work by our boys over there. They got a lot of repairing to do. And that's assuming, you know, that there's not subsequent damage from running with no oil, etc., back to the pit lane. That hole, unfortunately, at the very bottom of the tank would not leave you much left, would it?
Wow, how things change in a hurry. From running 1-2, suddenly you have one car parked on the side of the road with engine issues, and then another one that's perfectly healthy gets taken out by a very aggressive move by one of the Peugeots trying to get his way back to the front of this pack.
We are under safety car. It's the 4th full course caution today. Even Ollie Gavin is in there. One of the 3 drivers lending a hand where he can. It is all hands on deck at Corvette Racing. They're in damage control and are doing a first-class job. We'll check in with the boys. Dominant 64 repaired and get it back out there. This most recent caution period helped. However, there's still racing time and the repair. Jamie, tell us more.
Well, the good news, Lee, is that the work is continuing. Their day's certainly not done yet. Dorsey, you're wondering about the amount of oil left in there. When they did finally get the bottom of that tank off where the hole was, there was still some oil left. It's just a question of whether or not it was enough. Emmanuel Collard did get out of the car. Oliver Gavin will be the driver to take back over once they get all the pieces reassembled. Team still working hard. You said it, the number 63 crew still here. Danny Binks helping on board. Gary Pratt is calling the shots for the 64 car, but Dan Binks and all of his guys have all of their hands in here helping out as well. Andrew, who do you have?
Yeah, I've got the new leader of the class, Wolf Hensler in the 77 car. Wolf, suddenly you've inherited the lead, and what a race, and a battle for your class and a battle all through the field.
Yeah, it's a great battle this year with the Corvette, Ferrari and the Porsche. And now a little bit over 6 hours to go. Yeah, Mark Lieb took the lead. Unfortunately, the Corvette had an accident, so this put us in the lead, and now I really cross my fingers and hope we will finish on that position.
What's the strategy now? Will you wait and see how far the Corvette is behind?
Yeah, I see the Corvette is still in the pits. I think it will take a little bit longer, and we have about 1.5 lap or 2 laps. We are ahead of the second, so I think we can take it now a little bit easy and just, yeah, bring it home.
You've got the great old Porsche boss, Norbert Singer, in your garage. Does that help?
Yeah, for sure. Norbert is a big help to us. He has so much experience here with Le Mans, a great history for him here, and for sure he's a big help to us.
Wolf, thanks very much, and thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
And for a champion driver like Wolf Hensler, it's hard to believe that this is only Wolf's 3rd appearance at Le Mans. All 3.
Very knowledgeable.
There's a fresh rear end for the 64 Corvette.
Hopefully, all of the oil lines and oil coolers, and of course that oil tank and all of those coolers at the back of the car where the accident was, the engine being in the front, they have a lot of lines, and those lines have a lot of capacity of oil, and hopefully these boys won't be working for naught when they fire this beast back up, and hopefully the oil pressure will read that they're in.
Oh, look at this. They're getting close to getting this thing back on the road. Tremendous work by that crew. And you can't rehearse this stuff, Dorsey. I mean, when the thing is absolutely mangled, I mean, you can, spend time in your race shop changing various components and rehearsing everything. But when the thing is just smashed to pieces like that, it's a unique situation.
It's not just bolt stuff on, because when you go to bolt it on, nothing's straight anymore. The whole back end, we saw that frame on the left side was all tweaked over, so you hear all that hammering and pounding trying to get things to fit. Obviously a huge comprehensive understanding of this car. All these mechanics have.
The product, Relentless, certainly reflects how they have been in this race and in their fight against Highcroft Racing.
Yeah, I mean, they've just done a stunning job. I mean, Andrew talked about Nick Levenis, who owns this team. His father, Harry, also races in Vintage. And a lot of the ex-Embassy guys from the P2 ranks that Johnny Kane drove for in 08 are here. The team is based near Silverstone. And as we've mentioned many times before, they've been running this new Nick Worth designed HPD Le Mans style bodywork, and I think it's really paid dividends. And I'd say it'll be a big surprise if they can maintain this pace and maintain the gap that they have over the Highcroft team. I'd say this is one of the big surprises of this year's Le Mans, that they hold on for that victory against the very fancied team from the States.
They've got the Corvette running, guys. You see them looking underneath for oil leaks around that oil tank, the oil cooler, the new one's been put in. They're adding oil now to the sump. I didn't see anything leaking out of the bottom. That's one good thing.
Doug Feehan and Gary Pratt put together a tremendous crew here. Great chemistry. Even when they are basically running against each other with not much competition in the final years of their GT1 reign, they still maintained healthy competition between the two cars, and that's why they come out. Now they're really thrown in the deep pile of competition in GT2. They are certainly up to the task that they've proven here this weekend, and obviously over the course of the last year in the American Le Mans Series.
You cannot imagine the amount of work that they have just completed.
But Peugeot protested that, and the ACO rules, and prevented them from doing that. So they went to Homestead instead and did some aero testing there. And then immediately after we were finished at Sebring, they rolled into town and did extensive testing there. It was around about a 28-hour simulation. They didn't quite make the 30-hour mark. In preparation to come here and win the French Classic.
See, putting some bear bond on. That's because none of the latches are going to latch like they want to anymore.
They also did, as well as that 28 hours at Sebring, they also did 100 runs at a local airfield called Escoda, where they did all of their aero tests. And even Danny Binks got to drive the car one day. One of the drivers wasn't able to be there, so Dan got behind the wheel. He does some vintage racing on occasion, so.
Dan drives quite a bit, actually. He gets to drive some pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, some prototype stuff.
In exchange for taking care of some guys' cars and stuff, he gets to get behind the wheel of it. One of them, the old car I drove, the Dyson car. He also works on my old Ray Bestis Mustang, Trans Am car.
We're getting very close to seeing the 64 Corvette coming back out onto pit road. Before we see that, let's hear from defending race winner Alex Wirtz.
Well, Alex, now just a couple of minutes and we're 3/4 of the way through this, and you've got a big battle on your hands.
Yeah, we're gonna fight to the end. Unfortunately, the last safety car has dropped us unlucky back. We looked on target with our speed to maybe even still win the race, to catch the leader. But after the safety car, we lost again more than 1.5 minutes with unlucky positioning. And that's very bitter pill to digest.
What have your instructions been from Mr. Cunera? Is he telling you to absolutely go for it?
It's the first time I have no instructions, so I will just push as much as I can.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's one. That's even then, isn't it? Because Audi got hampered by the pace car early in the race, and then now it is Peugeot's time.
And what he's talking about there is the pace car came out and split Anthony Davison between he and the Audis and effectively gapped him by 1/3 of a lap, which at speed is about 1:10. So that is the disadvantage of this new pace car system that they're running this year.
But what goes around comes around. Like you say, the Audi got their bitter pill early in the race.
And Anthony created the yellow.
Yes, exactly. What a great sight this is. The 64 is back out. You have to applaud the efforts of the Corvette Racing team. What a miraculous job.
They are awesome.
What they just did was a miracle.
We talk a lot about Danny Binks. He's obviously close to many of us. We've known him for many years, but the quieter crew chief in that group is Mike West, and he and his whole group do an equal job on the 64 machine. But you could see there just the chemistry between the squad. Dan had his fingers in there too, helping out, and just an awesome job by that whole team.
Good job, boys.
And we applaud you, boys. Unbelievable performance. And that's why they are such feared competitors by their rivals, because they always give it the maximum effort.
I can't even believe they got that back together, much as got it back to the pits to get it back together.
This will be a very cautious outlap.
Definitely.
They have lost 5th position in class. Marco Holzer and his BMS Scuderia Porsche has moved into that position.
Corvette crew certainly not giving up. Doug Feehan, first of all, congratulations and very impressive rebuild of the number 64 machine. What was the final assessment?
Well, there was obviously significant damage. If you saw the hit, the damage it did to the guardrail and the catch fencing, you know, any other car would have been out for the event. But this team, this car, Corvette Racing, we never give up. And what you just saw here was something that probably couldn't be accomplished by any other team in this paddock.
From high to low, now running 4th in class. What's the goal now for the rest of the race?
Well, we should be good for about another 24-hour event right now because we've completely rebuilt the car. But we've got essentially 6 hours, and as you've seen in the last couple of hours, anything can happen. And our mantra here is never, ever give up. We take no prisoners. We will be racing to the end, and victory is still part of our plan.
Now, you just said they may be coming in. What would be the reason for that?
Well, we're going to go out, obviously, with that extensive of a rebuild, you know, with damage to so much of the car. We want to just make sure that the repairs that we've effected are properly done and there are no leaks, and that we can continue on for the rest of the event.
Let's get to the root of this. Did you see that pass on Davidson? What do you think?
Yes, I did. Yes.
What were your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, without looking at the replay extensively, you know, I'd say that in all likelihood it appeared that maybe the Peugeot was a little impatient through Porsche, which is not really a place where you want to go through side by side, and resulted in a little contact, and unfortunately the Corvette got the short end of the stick.
Short end of the stick, but a great crew behind him. Congratulations again on that rebuild.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, we've put on a pretty good show for the fans, and that's what racing's all about. Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield, and today it looks like we're the bug right now.
Well, you have certainly been both today. Andrew, what's at your end?